That will never work. You can't fuck with yourself. Seriously? Don't. Oh my God, that's another thing you can do. That's bad. You probably should find other hobbies. You ever learn to stop? Be happy. Well, you don't bother me. I've seen better people. Do you really want to? And my third grade, give it up. Welcome to Horrible Writing, the rawest, most candid, in-your-face writing show on the interwebs because none of us have time to suck. Let's do this. Welcome to episode 57 of Horrible Writing. I am your host, Paul Sading, and with me today I have an amazing human being. One, prior military. I got a soft spot in my heart for prior military folks, but beyond that, this is a person who gives to the community. I'm talking about the one, the only author and entrepreneur, Dave Chesson of Kindlpreneur. Dave, welcome to Horrible Writing.
Hey, thanks so much. It's really awesome to be here.
I am so excited to have you today. I threw out a topic for you and you were totally down with talking about it. And while I was serving in the military, you and I have chatted before this, and I went to school at night to get my degree for 10 to 12 years. I was a slow roller like that. But they were all business degrees. I've got 3 degrees in business and I geek out about business. But the 8-year-old in me still remembers that first horror story I wrote back in 2nd grade, all the way up through now in my 40s publishing novels. So I've got that artistic business balance and I don't have a problem with it. After I retired from the military and really embraced my love of writing again and joined writer communities, I realized, oh crap, a lot of writers struggle with this business stuff. So I'm thrilled to have you on here because you, from my view looking in, you have a master grasp of the business aspect of the writing business. And I know you can share some great tidbits with folks today. So walk us, share what you are comfortable sharing, but walk us through your evolution as the writer, entrepreneur guy. Did this happen overnight? Was there an epiphany you had in school one day? What happened to Dave Chesson to get him where he is?
Well, to tell you the truth, I've never called myself a great writer. Matter of fact, I struggle with even trying to say that today because when I was a kid, first off, I have a form of dyslexia. And so I struggle. As a matter of fact, I'll be up at the board and I'll be writing something and people will start moaning because it's like visual nails on a chalkboard watching me write. And just recently, I wrote out some handwritten notes to people thanking them for all the help they've given. And I made it handwritten notes, even though I knew that it would be like chicken scratch, like it looked like I got my 4-year-old to write it. And I put in there, look, this is the most personal thing I can do in an age of digital is to write this. But I just want you to know I'm dyslexic. And so from my childhood, I have always been at a severe disadvantage in the way I write and my hand-eye coordination. And I was just destined to never be a writer. And in my mind, that was the case. I remember specifically when I was in high school and it was English class and my teacher came up to me and we just done this assignment and I poured my heart and soul into it. I thought if I truly write with passion that I'm going to get a great grade. My teacher will finally say, Dave, you did a good job. And she comes up to me and she says, Dave, you're going to go study physics in college, right? I said, yes, ma'am. She goes, that's probably a good idea. And she slides me on my paper and it's a D-. Now, I loved her. She was awesome. And she was like one of the coolest people. And so I took it with stride. I'm like, hey, oh, that's not D for David. Oh, okay, yeah. But I mean, she was awesome enough to be able to pull that. But it stuck with me for the rest of my life. And I did. I went into physics and I would jokingly tell people, but also a little bit seriously, is that it's the furthest I can get from English. So when I say that I believed that I was never going to be a writer, I truly mean it. I was afflicted, I was convicted, and I was determined not to. Now, fast forward through, we talk about the military career. I became a nuclear engineer in the Navy, especially on submarines, and then I moved into military diplomacy. And I've always had this kind of numbers analytical mind. And I got into writing. This is the craziest part, was that I started learning about the market. I started learning that there are things that people just want to know. And you don't have to be an Ernest Hemingway so long as you have the answer to their question and you're able to phrase it in the way they want to hear it. That's it. And when I understood that, all of a sudden, writing wasn't so difficult. I didn't have to hold over my head this belief that I needed to be a superior writer in order to help change lives. And from that moment on, I stopped saying to myself, you're not destined to be a writer. I started saying to myself, I may not be able to write so good, but my words can still have an impact, and that's where I'm going from. So I wrote from that angle. I was writing to serve an existing people, an existing market. Okay. And through that analysis and through my numbers and through my focus on the market, that's really what culminated and created my Kindlepreneur thought process. Okay. Now, a lot of people say that the entrepreneur part to Kindle, entrepreneur, Kindlepreneur, is about the money, and it's not. We have art, and there's a couple of things to this. Number one, we need to make enough money to afford to be creative as artists. Uh-huh. That's one big part. I want to one day make electronic dance music, but I got to make enough money to be able to go just do something crazy like that, right? I would love to be able to not be pressured to have to make a certain amount of money and instead can write what's inside my heart. That's one part of it. Number two, if we as an artist are focused on creating something because we are passionate about it and we have no care for the reader, or we have no care for truly, taking the fans on a journey, that could be a bit selfish. Mm-hmm. So for the authors who are like, I just want to write whatever I want to write, I don't care about the market, let me change some of those words. You want to write for you, you don't care about the people who read. I just want to shift a little bit of the mentality. I'm not trying to judge people. I am definitely not trying to shame people. I just want people to understand that when you start to learn how to get your book in front of the right people, you need to think of it not as a big money sign, but you need to think of it as this will allow you to be creative in the future, to be able to do what you truly want to do, but more importantly, you're serving people. So Kindlepreneur represents giving authors the ability to get their books in front of the right people, whether the purpose of that is to change lives or to improve lives or to make money. That's up to you. Mm-hmm. But we focus on the book marketing aspect, and that can be something huge for any author.
And I think you communicate that really well, because I think we all joke about it in our Facebook groups of writers and about those writers. If you go look at their Twitter feed and you scroll down, you can see every single tweet since 1942 was a link to their Amazon book, right? And I think that's what you, and folks, I will make full disclosure here. Dave isn't here because he owes me an obligation or anything. I'm actually a customer of his, and you all know I only published in June, so I'm sparkling. I'm still in the diaper stage of my author career, but about a month after launching my debut novel is when I picked up Kindle Rocket, in which Dave and I will chat about later. And it's been, I will try to attest to what his message just was, that with those right words, with being able to focus your message, you're achieving that transcendent goal of why you're doing this in the first place. And that obviously that financial maybe freedom that comes with it, but at the same time, it gives you that flexibility to achieve, to reach those transcendent goals, those fulfilling things that we talk about all the time on Horrible Writing. And Dave, I don't feel like you asked for that or anything. I just feel like it's important to piggyback on what you said for anybody who may be new to you and they don't know you yet, because it's an important message. And that's exactly, I feel, Paul's opinion, I feel that's what your company, your products have done for writers. So, yes. So, listeners, make sure that you understand that. Rewind if you have to, but getting that right story in front of the right person to let it resonate with them, to entertain them, to teach them something, whatever it may be. So, Dave, how did this happen then? You were a Navy dude doing Navy stuff and, really the opposite end of the spectrum from writing. So walk us through that first day you sat at that keyboard. How do you mix that? How did you decide seriously? Because, and I mean this genuinely, I'm smiling, but there are so many writers that I meet that they get right there on the cusp of doing that thing that's going to fulfill them. And whether it's fear or whatever it may be, they pull back. So for you, you had a comfortable life. You could have retired, got a pension in a couple of years. What made you step? What made you pull that trigger and step into the dark side of creation?
Well, I had just switched from submarines into military diplomacy, and they call that job a foreign area officer. And I went to school. I became fluent in Mandarin Chinese. I got a master's in East Asia. I was all excited. The first orders they give me, Korea. I was like, I don't speak Korean. But the worst part was that I was sent without my family for 2 years. Mm-hmm. So I had 2 years without my kids and my wife. And one time over Skype, my wife and I were having a conversation. She was like, look, what is your goal with this whole military thing? And I'm like, what do you mean? She's like, well, do you have some finish line? Is there something you're actually working towards? And I was like, no. She was like, so it's not to be an admiral? I'm like, nope. And she's like, so then what are we doing this for? Like, do you want this kind of lifestyle where, you're going to be traveling and we're always here without you? And I was like, nope. And so that was a great wake-up call, kind of a ding over the head. And we had this moment of trying to figure out, okay, got it. If I'm not trying to be something, if I'm not trying to promote something inside of my quote-unquote career at the time, what am I doing? We looked at what I could do that would allow me to be with my family. Something that wouldn't just send me off. If I got out of the Navy, I would probably immediately get some job working for some company as a liaison to Chinese company, just because of the background, right? Mm-hmm. And that was not going to work for us. So we started looking at what we could do, and kind of to shorten a very long story, I realized I wanted to do something online. If I'm in Korea, I don't have the ability to sell things or to have a brick and mortar, back in America. I couldn't do that. So I needed to start building something now. And I started learning about search engine optimization. That's really where I started, SEO. And for those who don't know, SEO is the ability to convince search engines like Google that what you write should be shown in front of people. And it was from that study that I started to understand that, hey, if 10,000 people a month type in this particular question and I'm the only person who answers it, Google will send them to me. And I can fix their problem. I can answer their question. And it was from that platform that I then started to say, Amazon's a search engine, just like Google. People go there, they type something into Amazon, and they look. And if they don't find what they want, they move on. So I applied that background to Amazon and found that at the time, I don't think the term Amazon SEO was really coined. It was like in its infancy. And I just really started to look into the market. And for me as a writer, it gave me so much more confidence in writing because I knew there was a need. I knew there were people who were typing things into Amazon, not finding what they wanted, or the books that were being offered were just horrendous. And it was like, yes, it's like not only do I find subjects that I can write about, but more importantly, I was finding that I had people to serve. And that gave me more confidence. So when I sat down, I knew that there were people waiting for this, that I knew exactly what they needed. And therefore, it was up to me to just sit and write. And so when I started doing that, that's when a lot of things started to take off. I started coming out with more and more books and things started to grow. And that's when I realized, there's really nobody looking at Amazon in this way. Let's start a website that focuses on this, Kindlepreneur. And fast forward about 2 years ago, I was able to make more than enough money to tell the Navy, thank you so much. It's been wonderful serving, but I am going home. And my last station was actually in Sri Lanka. And so I moved here to Franklin, Tennessee. and it's been amazing. I've got my 2 youngest kids upstairs, and like we said, my college age daughter is at Lehigh University. But if I wanted to, I could just go fly out and see her and take my laptop with me. So it's, yay, finish line, and just loving the life.
So in that, you kind of led me in right to the next question that I was going to ask. So you've lived that life. Being military is crazy hectic for the family and the active duty person. Writers have, the typical writer who's going to listen to this show is somebody still at the early stages of their journey. And they're hearing you, and I've seen this happen to other writer friends. I've gone through it myself. And again, having that geeky background in business, I still have felt it myself. So I'm trying to be empathetic to those who don't necessarily align with business. You're saying these things, and this is all great. And as a writer, we know we have to start leveraging the tools that are out there in the marketplace. We have to leverage things like Amazon, unless we just have a devil doesn't care kind of attitude about it, right? So for you, and what would you say to those types of writers? Chicken and egg conundrum, what comes first? What came first for you? What lessons did you learn through that? Maybe it was a focus on writing first, shifting to business, or maybe it was a mix. But can you kind of take us through your perspective on that?
Well, first off, for me, I didn't approach writing like it was a hobby. I didn't dabble in it. Instead, I had a goal, and my personal financial goal was to make $10,000 a month so that I could take care of my family and I could go home, leave the military, go home and be with them. And as a father, I had a responsibility. If I was a single guy, maybe I would have gone and moved to like Chiang Mai or something, and lived off $1,000 a month and, lived like a king. Those young people. But no, I had kids who were depending on me. I currently have a daughter who's got a really large tuition bill that I've got to pay. So that was my motivation, right? I knew that if I was going to do this, I needed to approach it systematically and legitimately. So the first thing I did was I actually restructured my lifestyle so as to be able to support this. One of the things was I started getting up at 4 a.m. every morning, Monday through Sunday. And that was my time. Nobody else was up. Nobody would bother me. No work, no nothing. Now, at the time I was in Korea. So yeah, actually the Americans were up at the time, but I would just turn off Facebook. Okay. And I would sit and I would just write. I would usually devote maybe the first hour to studying, learning, whether it was reading a book on improving my writing or it was SEO or it was following the blogs. But at that point, once that hour was done, cut off. I would then write until it was time to get ready for work. So at about 7 o'clock or so, I'd go shower, throw on my uniform, pop over to work, at the naval base down in Busan, South Korea, do my thing until 5 o'clock. And I'd give myself 1 hour break and immediately I'd go home and get right back to working. I would write all the way until 9. And then from 9 to 10, I'd probably relax a bit, give myself a little bit of time, maybe watch a TV show, but that was it. Mm-hmm. I cut out a lot of things. I didn't go out and hang out with, coworkers. I stopped watching movies. I used to be a big movie person. I cut those out because it was more important to me to be able to succeed than it was to kind of enjoy those things. I had a mission to be with my family. So that was, I think, one of the biggest reasons as to why I was able to succeed. It wasn't like a wishy-washy thing. My goal wasn't, I want to make money. My goal was not to let my children down. Mm-hmm. And that was worth all the sacrifice it took to get here. It was worth missing out on those super fun events. It was worth, the so-called ease of sleeping in the morning, And I would say to anybody who really wants to take it to that level, you need to make sure that your goal is worth the sacrifice and then take action. You can't just fit it into your life. Mm-hmm. You need to restructure your life for that type of path.
Yeah, that's an empowering statement right there. Dave, I will probably meme you on that comment. Just don't be surprised if in the future from the Twitter account, you see a cool little meme with you being attributed a quote. I wanted to take a second out of this interview to let you know that my newest book is now out on Amazon for pre-order. You can pick up the horror anthology, 12 Deaths of Christmas, today for pre-order. It's coming out on Thanksgiving of 2018. 12 wicked tales of horror, pretty much for any fan of Clive Barker's Books of Blood back in the day. Upscale stores in the middle of New York City that offers its customers more than they bargained for. Prodigal sons returning home for aunts' funerals, only to discover that an ancient entity awaits them. What about a town sheltering against the first snow and the evil it brings, or a mad king, a hired assassin, a world in the balance, and an eternal force manipulating all of them? This and much, much, much more wickedness in my new horror anthology, just in time for the holidays, called 12 Deaths of Christmas, that you can pick up on Amazon now. Let's get back to the interview. Again, because I've built a relationship with you, some of you may not know who Dave is. I can, again, reaffirm what he just said about Korea. Hanging out with friends is an imperative over there for your mental health, for everything over there. You're networking, especially in Dave's position. Those things are important. And when I was in, Dave, I only did a year in Korea up at Kunsan, so northwest of where you were. I filled my days playing, God, what the hell was the name of that game? The online fantasy game,
League of Legends?
No. The, huge Warcraft.
Warcraft.
Yeah.
World of
Warcraft. God. Wasted.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I could have been serious. I could have been somebody. But yeah, it takes it. And that's very empowering. And listeners, you know this on Horrible Writing. The tagline to the show is empowerment through candor. Dave was very candid. The restructuring of the life is critical. So Dave, with that, this is a great segue into what I wanted to ask you next. What do you do when that businessy brain impedes on the creative and vice versa? Is it all about structure for you, or is there something else that you do that has helped yourself?
That's a really good question. I think for me, when I first started, I made decisions more towards the financial aspect than the creative aspect. And that was because the goal wasn't to be a famous writer. The goal wasn't to have pride points or to build some giant following and have people tell me how much they love my work. The goal was to make enough money to be able to get out of the military and be home with my kids. The goal was to be home with my kids, right? That was it. Now, did that mean that I was selling my soul? Good Lord, no. In the online industry, it is very easy to sell your soul. And I will say there was a time in my learning life that I thought only the sleazy are making money on the internet. Like, I got in this dark moment where I was like, I don't want to sell my soul. I need to look at my kids, and be able to look in the mirror
Right.
at the same time and feel good about this. And I came across a website that you might have heard of called smartpassiveincome.com by Pat Flynn. And he changed my life because he showed me that you can succeed and make the internet a better place. And my motto from that point on is make the internet a better place. Everything I do, I will only do if I can absolutely, with honor, be able to say that made the internet better. And that was a turning point for me. So I bring this up because it wasn't like everything I did was about money, right? It wasn't about that. It was making sure that what I was providing was answering questions, was meeting a market, and I would choose certain things based off of money. Now, as I finally hit my financial goals, like I started off with, right? It takes money to pay for creativity, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you got to make enough money to be able to afford to then just be creative and try new things. And once I hit that point, that's when I really started to have fun. That's when I was like, let's do this and let's try this. Let's fail forward on this and see where it takes us. So just to recap, because of my goals, I made financial decisions more so over creative. But as those goals were met, I was able to shift and have a lot more fun and do the things, that are more creative, shall we say.
And that, what a glorious place to be in life. What a glorious place. So let's talk about that. Your personal life. Let's get to know Dave Chesson a little bit, as much, again, as you're comfortable sharing. But with these realizations, with this focus on what you wanted to achieve and the realization of some of your goals, as it relates to back to being a writer, my audience is going to be writers listening to you. So as it relates to them and their own journey, how has this affected that mindset? How have you found yourself imbalanced in one way or another? Like I'm guilty of, so I'm not going to put you on the spot unless you want to share it. But putting off writing for so long, and in my first year being published, between June and December, I'm going to publish 3 books. And I've had to catch myself and say, Paul, knock it off. You got other people in your life you love. You want to spend some time with them, right? So I've caught myself sliding down that slope. Has Dave been there or something similar to that? And what have you done to kind of correct course or embrace the course? You may have just been on a great course.
Well, I think a lot of it kind of comes back to what we talked about earlier, which was setting aside time. Right now, I mean, technically, I could really just take a hiatus, and just go spend a year running around maybe Europe, take my family with. We could do that. But, the key thing is I work with my spouse, my wife, and we make decisions together, and we want to kind of live the lifestyle we have. What happens right now is I work from a certain period to a certain period, but at that period, it's done. No more work. Everything off. No cell phone. I've got an iWatch on, and the reason for it is that I can leave my phone down in my office, not be able to pick it up, but at least if there's like a phone call, I can get it. A text message, I can get it, but I'm not caught on like Facebook.
Right.
My children don't see me always on digital stuff. They don't see me scrolling around, reading some post, reading a comment, none of that. And separating the digital life from your real life, shall we say, is very important. So what my children get is that from a certain period of time to a certain period of time, they truly get dad's attention. And that allows us to grow as a family, to grow as a business, grow as a writer. I'm able to protect that time because when I am doing that, I'm devoted to it. Sometimes, spending 10 minutes talking directly to your child might actually be more interaction than most people give in 4 years or in 4 hours with their kids.
Mm-hmm.
Because like we're with our kids, and you can't see me doing the bunny ears, quote unquote, we're with our kids, but are we truly with our kids? Are we truly spending that time with them or our spouse? So to kind of recap on that, I think it's important to protect your time. And when you are doing what you're doing, you truly devote yourself to that. You'll get a lot more out of not just your work, but also your life.
Beautiful, beautiful. I love life advice on this show. And thank you for sharing that, Dave. And I kind of wanted to ask you a little bit on that too, about and I don't mean to be invasive or rude, but it's interesting for me. And I've got non-business oriented people in my life. And one of the aversions that they have to, doesn't matter what it is, but business is the uglier side. So I don't want to necessarily focus on the uglier side, but what I want to do for my listeners is help them hear from you. I mean, let's recognize there's an uglier side to all human interaction in life, but especially in business. Kindlepreneur, Kindle Rocket have been outstanding successes. You have been a success, and there have probably been people who have looked at you with a little bit of green tint to their eyes. So I'm curious, within your writing community circles, and how has your success and your drive and your business orientation, how has that impacted Dave the human, those relationships? And what have you done to cultivate the healthy stuff that helps you be creative?
Well, I think the first thing comes back to, what we talked about with being able to look in the mirror, right? One of my mottos is I fear only God and dishonor. And everything I do is about that. Mm-hmm. So, and the same thing too is I only do business with people, like you may have the most amazing product, but if I have a feeling that honor is not like a core tenet of what you do, like, or that you have no shame, it's all about the dollar, mm-hmm. I will distance myself immediately. And when we create something, if we truly believe that we've poured our heart and soul, or that we've worked really hard on this, we've done everything that we can do, if there's a negative comment, or let's even talk about reviews, right? When you get that 1-star cranky, negabot person in there, like I can still read that review and say, all right, where can I learn from this? And if there's nothing I can learn from this, I can still walk fine because I know I did what I could do. I served. So any project I take, any writing assignment that I do, so long as I do my best and I'm truly trying to serve and I work with honor, you're going to have people who, no matter what, because of where they are in life, they will see things in the shade of green, like you talked about, and that's not something that I can do for them. They have darkness inside of their heart and they see darkness. So long as I know that I wasn't being dark myself, and I'll pray for them.
So, okay, how do you do that then? That's a great tip, tool, tactic, especially for new writers who haven't had the chance to get punched a couple times so the skin hasn't thickened. You said you do this. I've talked to other folks like you, well-established folks, who will blatantly take the margins and disregard them, right? They'll look at their 3 stars, 3 and 4 stars, for the very thing that you said you do it for, to see what I can cultivate from this to learn, to work on, etc. Yet you're able to do that with something like a 2 or a 1 star. How do you do that, though? If you can ground us in a principle maybe that helped you thicken the skin or be able to look past the green envy haze to the valid point that they may be making.
2 tactics to this. Number 1, I love reading the reviews of some of my favorite authors, like the guys who I think are the best of the best of the best. Okay. In fantasy, I love Brandon Sanderson. Yes. I will read his reviews and you will see 1 stars for who is probably the greatest fantasy writer of our time. And you will listen to just ridiculousness. And if Brandon Sanderson can get a ridiculous 1 star, that just proves that no matter how amazing you are, it's going to happen. Yeah. Right? Now, that helps me in kind of realizing that it's not my fault. Like it's going to happen. But I approach my writing as though I need to always improve. I can improve. I can one day, maybe one day, get to Brandon Sanderson level, okay? Or Orson Scott Card, in sci-fi, or Brendan Scalzi. These are my favorites, by the way. Sorry,
no, you're fine.
I will jump in there and I will see this, and it will give me strength, and then I have more strength to go in and read my own reviews and say, hey, look, Brandon got destroyed, but let me look at mine and see if there's something. Am I seeing a common theme? Did I miss something? Do they hate a character that I created? Do they hate an argument that I made? Do they think there's an undertone when there really wasn't? These are all things that I will go through and I will try to understand. Another tactic, so that was 1. Look at your favorites and read their terrible reviews so all right, the world's ridiculous. Number 2, though. When you start to craft your own, I love going back to the first thing they ever made. You could do this in YouTube. Go to like the first ever YouTube video of somebody you love. Go watch it. It's terrible. Mm-hmm. Listen to the first recording of their podcast. I mean, John Lee Dumas, who's done thousands and thousands of podcasts, he'll even tell you, if you listen to his first ever one, it's cringeworthy. I mean, it is just like, oh, Lord have mercy. That tactic right there should tell you that even the greatest started at a very low spot. And they just kept with it. They honed their skill and they got better. So use those 2 ways to not only build your confidence, but to build up the skin so that you can take that 1 star and hopefully, maybe find something valuable out of it.
Excellent advice. So listeners, if this is your first episode of Horrible Writing, you won't know, you might be listening to this because you are a fan of Dave's and you have no idea who I am. Well, welcome to the family. I appreciate your listen, but you're going to think I'm a real jerk for what I'm about to do to him, and I promise there's a reason why we're doing this. At this point in the interview, I love to bring my guest in, offer them a warm drink or a cold drink, whichever they prefer, and then ask them for something horrible that's happened to them. Now, in a second here, Dave's going to share his horrible writing experience. The reason I do this is because if you listen to what he says and how he responds, there's little nuggets in there that we can all take away. So, Dave, with saying all that, what is your horrible writing experience?
I once had a lawyer come after me and sue me on copyright.
Ouch.
Yep. It was, I was still in Korea at the time, and I got an email from Amazon that basically said, we received a cease and desist, so we're shutting down your account. I was like, what? And I was like, this is ridiculous. So they said, oh, by the way, we'll reopen your account, but keep the book off the market if you copy and paste this thing, which basically like Amazon CYA, cover your own, you know what. And so I did, and I opened it up, and I was able to contact, and I looked at it, and basically somebody was saying that I ripped them off and that they were therefore taking my book off the market. Now, I was distraught. I mean, I couldn't eat. I couldn't sleep. I was like, here I am, a law-abiding, citizen. I'm a hard worker. And what in the heck is this? I think I lost like 15 pounds in the couple of days. Like, that's how distraught. Like, I mean, destroyed. And my wife, God bless her, she said basically, well, if you can't man up to this and take this challenge on, you're in the wrong business.
And she did this from the other side of the planet.
The other side of the world. Yeah, that's right. While she's living at home with her parents, with my kids, while I'm on the other side of the world pining over this thing. Yeah, she's a very strong woman. And so she basically put me in my place right there. I said, okay. And I collected myself up, and I hired a lawyer, and I said, all right, let's look at this. Because the truth is, I didn't infringe on their copyright. I didn't do any of that stuff. What's going on here? And my lawyer quickly looked at their argument and was like, this is actually just pure bunk. There's no argument that this person has whatsoever anywhere at this. This is an empty threat. And I was like, you're kidding me. And the reason was that we had, I had written in a subject where there was only one book at the time, but I had major experience in this area. So I was able to create a book that answered this need. And my book, well, guess what? It was a lot better. And this person had lost a lot of sales because people were not choosing his book. And so he decided that he would attack in this way and hopefully scare me off. Yeah. He almost won. He almost beat me because I wasn't ready for that sort of thing. And so we basically responded back, said, all right, fine, let's go to court. And by the way, you do understand that you have zero capability to back this up. You even know it. There's no way as a lawyer you think you got a case, and X, Y, and Z. And oh, by the way, we will come back at you with all of the lost money that this book was making. You will pay that back when we win this. Immediately they responded and said, oh, that's okay, we'll drop it. Really? Okay, great. So my thing was that in this story, I look back at it as a great turning, as a great moment, because in that moment of weakness and self-destruction and self-doubt, thanks to my hero, my wife, she was able to set me straight. And I've been a lot smarter about the things I do. I think I'm a lot more prepared. And since then, I write under a limited liability corporation, an LLC. I have, separated my author life from my my writing life, and I just see it as a great moment. And sometimes when we look back at any of the roadblocks that we've run into as writers, or any challenges that we met, so long as we didn't quit, but we failed forward and we got through it, those are what build us into something greater. Getting the D- on my paper. Well, guess what? I failed on that one because I didn't keep writing. But if I had accomplished that would have been a turning moment. And so I want every author listening to understand that when you get that first 1 star, hey, good job. Good for you. So long as you didn't quit, right? When you have a launch that doesn't go the way you want, you know what? Great, learn from that. So long as you didn't quit. And if you ever get one of those cease and desist, but you didn't break the law and you take it, you beat it, good job, because you didn't quit.
That is, I'm not even going to follow up. That's awesome. That is awesome. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that part of your story. I mean, that's uplifting. It's enlightening. And, man, I like talking to you. I feel like I could lift a mountain. People tell me that I have this passionate presentation. I can't hold a feather to you. I have the fortune of doing this over video with you. I wish listeners, I really wish we could do this, so you could see Dave. I'm ready to go tear down some walls. I really am. In a good way, in a constructive way, if that makes sense at all. So Dave, you've done a lot to help folks through what we've said here. I want to turn the spotlight on you and some of the awesome things that you have going on. Now, I know that when you write under a bunch of different names, and you do this for very deliberate reasons. So I haven't done enough investigation to see if I can track you down. I wouldn't do that. But so share whatever you're comfortable with. But I really want to turn the spotlight back on what you have to offer to the world that listeners can go find now. So whichever avenue or both you want to talk about, the writing aspect, the business aspect with Kindlepreneur, what are you doing out there that's so awesome that people need to know about?
Well, the funny thing is that, and I'll step back on the pen name conversation. When I first started, I was worried about separating, the professional life, because I was a military diplomat, and the writer life. And so I started with pen names. And then my next assignment in Sri Lanka, I worked at the U.S. Embassy, so it was even more important that I keep my writing life separate than my seriously political life. But then what was really cool was that I had started Kindlepreneur, and I thought, who's going to want to listen to a guy where you can't go find my books, right? But that was not the case. A lot of people were able to read, the articles on Kindlepreneur and be like, there's no way this guy doesn't do this. He's not faking this. But was even more important was that I never revealed the books, because every time I was coming out with a new book, I wasn't using the fame or the email or the platform that I had at Kindlepreneur. I mean, every time I write a new book, I have to start all over in the trenches. I have to be a brand new, nobody, never heard of, nothing going for him writer. And that has helped me force myself to stay on top of all the new marketing tactics out there. Like, it made me be one of the first adopters to Amazon Marketing Services, AMS, when it first came out, because I needed it. I was not using a giant email list to launch with success. And that has been incredible. So one of the things that I love about the website Kindlepreneur is that we only write one article every 2 weeks. And that's because it takes good 2+ weeks to write that article. And the goal with every article is that you're not only going to learn something, but you're going to learn everything you need to know to turn around and take action. Mm-hmm. And I think that approach has what's led Kindlepreneur to its success. We have over 200,000 visitors per month to the website. And, it's kind of insane. It's like you got to pinch yourself when you realize that there are that many people reading and writing and just, loving it. And so I would just have to say that that's kind of been one of the biggest eye openers, and it's been really cool to be able to be a part of that. Mm-hmm.
And it's listeners, and I do want to encourage you. I only reach out to people I feel will serve our community well. And again, I was a customer of Dave's long before I reached out to him. And Dave, I think one of the great things that you do, I actually currently still, because I got to work for a living, still actually do curriculum development and instruction for the Department of Defense. And one of the things that you and your company do so well is the way you package stuff. It's kind of like micro learning, folks. He doesn't give you 20-hour seminar on all these things you have to do. You're a writer. You need to worry about your plot and your protagonist arc. Oh my God, I can't do all this business stuff. The way that Kindlepreneur does it, it's bite-sized, but there's a lot of meat in there. You get a good chew for what Dave gives you on the plate. So start out, sign up for the newsletter, get the emails, twice a month, and that'll be enough to really make you feel grounded in this business aspect, which I know can be very intimidating for writers. It's great stuff, Dave. I love what you're doing out there. I absolutely love it. I look forward to more of what you have, but I want to give you a sincere thank you for coming on, taking the time out to do this and to share, your personal side of your journey. And again, tips, tools, and tactics from people who've been there, done it, or are doing it is invaluable to new writers. So I want to thank you on behalf of everybody who listens to the show, because you've given me stuff to think about today, and I know they will as well.
Thanks, Paul. Well, that means a lot. And again, thank you for having me.
This has been Horrible Writing, and hopefully after this episode, you suck less than you did at the beginning. I am Paul Sadin, your host extraordinaire. You can find me over on the Twitterverse @WritingHorrible and over at paulsadin.com/horrible-writing. Until next time, suck less.